Hey everyone, and welcome to Carter Plays, and you are watching another Nancy Drew gaming video, and I am so excited about this one because today we are ranking my top 10 favorite Nancy Drew rooms. This idea came to me when I was playing a Nancy Drew game video recently on the channel and started thinking about how much I really appreciated the room and the aesthetic of the room and the puzzles in part of the room. And then I just started thinking, well, what's my favorite Nancy Drew room? And started making a list, and that's how the video was born. But I gotta be honest with you, this ranking in particular was probably my most difficult one that I've had to sit down and organize. Mostly because of the challenge of the different variations throughout the game. So for example, there may be one mystery where Nancy has her own space. She has her own room. Maybe she's staying with another roommate somewhere, or she has her own room like a hotel room. Either way, we get to physically explore and see clues and do puzzles in her own space. And then there are other games, other mysteries where she doesn't have a room. We have to kind of use our imagination to believe that there's a room somewhere that she's staying at. Or there's even mysteries where she solves the case in less than a day. So there is nowhere she's particularly like rooming at. So that's why the organization of this ranking was so difficult, because it was like, okay, well, what do I rank all of them? Do I just kind of make it up? I struggled so much. I ended up coming to the conclusion, no. I just need to sit down and talk about my top 10 favorite. And maybe, in between somewhere in there, I can talk about other games and how we have to kind of use our imagination more. But really, I want to stick to the top 10 here and really focus on those. So that's what we're doing today. I'm so excited and can't wait to dive into my top 10 favorite Nancy Drew rooms. And hey, let me know in the comments below which one your favorite room is, and I would love to know. Let's jump right into this ranking. Coming in at number 10, we have the Deadly Device. All right, so let's kind of break this down. The space where Nancy's staying at is actually quite small. She has like a bunk bed with like a locker and a bedside table with an alarm clock and a bathroom. It's a very small room. It's got all the essentials. However, the room is connected to this lobby area, almost kind of like the break room for all the employees where they go, and that's kind of like they have a small kitchenette, and they have a little lobby space with couches and a TV where they can kind of chill and relax during their lunch breaks, or if they need a break, or whatever the case may be. And because of that connection between the room where Nancy Drew is staying at and this lobby area, that actually it really becomes almost kind of a command central for Nancy solving the case. I think that's why the Deadly Device room, her bedroom, really amps up for me. It's kind of why it made it into my top 10, because there are so many reasons that we use that area. It's not just a place where Nancy sleeps. It's the place where Nancy goes and puts together this puzzle where she's having to get the thumbprint, right? Melting the gummy bear and using the thumbprint to be able to bypass a code. I mean, that's so clever. That's so great. I love that we were able to do that all together in that space, putting together that robotic cat. There were cat parts in there, trying to beat the high score of Aggregate, the arcade game. There's just such great use there. And then especially that moment in the game where the power is out and we are in that area, in that space of Nancy's room, and she hears someone stumbling on something in there and she's startled by it. There's obviously someone else in this space with her. We don't know who it is. It could be the murderer, and ooh, wow, that really just like makes the intense feelings that you're already feeling from being in this cold, isolated lab in Colorado, where you're almost kind of snowed in, you can't really leave, you're kind of having to solve this clue type of mystery right now. There's a murderer on the loose, we've got to solve things now. It's excellently done, and I think that's why I love this room so much, is because of that connection to that space. It makes it so much better and so much more than just a bedroom, which is why it so easily makes my top 10. The Deadly Device. Yes, Ghost of Thornton Hall. Oh my goodness, yes. This one is so good in how it made its environment feel in the game. And particularly Nancy Drew, we don't know the space where she's going to stay at. We don't know if she's staying in a room. We just have to kind of we start exploring. We just immediately we come off this boat and we just are entered into exploration. It's awesome. There's no like not really much of a formal introduction with this game. It kind of just starts with a phone call and then a boat ride, and then you're there. Boom, done. And so when we get there and we do start exploring, there's this really ominous long staircase, and we've already been creeped out just by how long the walk was from the dock all the way to the front of the house. It's foggy, it's very, very dark, and it's eerie, it's spooky. There's not many people walking around, there's not much light. You're just kind of alone on this island. And when you do see this really long staircase, you finally decide, okay, I'm gonna go up it, and it creaks, it has all these noises, there's all these sounds of like ghostliness somewhere, and you're already kind of terrified to walk up these stairs and get to the top. And then when you do make it to the top, and you do walk a little short more way, you see that there's this tent set out in front of these really tall windows on the side of the mansion, the manor. And there's a lantern, and you realize, oh my gosh, this is my room. This is where I'm staying. I am staying in the middle of a very haunted, spooky type of manor. Not a room where I can at least close the door and lock it. No. An open area, an open space. And so for Ghosts of Thornton Hall, that for me is why it ranked a little bit higher. It's just the environment of the space itself, the room, is so good. It's so spooky, and it pairs well with the environment of the overall game. I really also enjoyed that this space that Nancy's at, it also becomes like another command central for her, where she does a lot of, clue solving, and she gets a lot of notes, these really, anonymous notes that we don't realize at first, that just has her name Nancy written over the top of it, very scary like. And, we just happily go back to our space thinking that, oh, okay, we'll be fine. And then boom, we're hit with this really, note that's like, has just big giant letters Nancy just like kind of eerily painted on the top of it, and you're like, oh my gosh, what is this, right? I love that was incorporated into the space, into the room. And I also love that, connected to where Nancy is sleeping, where she will be rooming, there's another hallway, and that is actually a space where we see Charlotte. And so the fact that we kind of get to have these interactions with the ghost, there's also that secret passageway down that long hallway. There's also that time where we're in the secret passageway and we hear Clara on the phone. I mean, all of that happens right around the space where Nancy will be sleeping. And I think that is a really well done touch to the area of that room. It really amps up the eerie and scary vibes of the game, especially because I definitely wouldn't want to be sleeping in a place where I've seen a ghost. I would definitely not want to be rooming where it was just kind of out in the open. Like there's just two hallways to my left and to my right, and there's no door, there's nothing, there's no walls to protect me. It's just this open area. And so I think what an awesome touch to this game. It wasn't a room, that was the room. So I think that's why Ghosts of Thornton Hall makes it a little bit higher, has some extra brownie points, because what a very, very nice touch to an overall spooky game. Coming in at number 8, we have The Silent Spy. Okay, so I was actually surprised to see so many of these games back to back in this type of era, these newer games, to be on this list. But, the more I thought about the room where Nancy stays in, the space where she dwells at during the mystery, the more I thought, wow, that's a really great room, And The Silent Spy, it makes it up on number 8 spot, just because, this space, this room has so much happening in it at one time. I mean, my goodness, we even zip line across from our room to Bridget's room. I mean, I, we think we get shot at in this game, in this room. So it just kind of has to make it up a little bit higher than Ghost of Thornton Hall and Deadly Device. But there's so much interaction. I mean, we do just about the last puzzle here in this space on the table where we're putting the cards together. A lot happens in this hotel room, and that's why also The Silent Spy, to me, it beats other games that have hotel rooms. I mean, there's so much interaction in this one space that Nancy's staying at. There's so much incorporation of puzzle and sequencing as well, cutscenes. I think that it makes it so much more cinematic. And this game to me is very cinematic. There's a lot happening. There's a lot of drama. And I find it really exciting. So for me, The Silent Spy, because it incorporates those things, I think it does rank a little bit higher. I love that this hotel, it gave us a much more interaction than hotels in the past. It wasn't like we could just interact with one or two things and that was kind of it. I mean, it really felt like an actual hotel room. We were able to kind of go out to the window and look out. We were able to use the safe in our room. And our room, at one point in the mystery of the room where like the phone is bugged, and Nancy figures it out. So there's just so much interaction between here, this room, and the villain, and just trying to kind of figure out the mystery. So I think for me, that's why this game, the way it incorporates its space, and the way that it weaves through puzzles and cutscenes, it just makes it up higher. It's so good. And I also really appreciate the design of it as well. I love all like the very oaky furniture and the colors that are used. It did a really good job of putting together this really nice fancy hotel. And the graphics in these newer games are just so stunning. So that goes without mention as well. I thought Silent Spy had some really beautiful graphics when we were in the hotel, and anywhere outside of the hotel. It was very clear and very put together, and I really enjoyed this room. So it makes it in the number 8 spot, The Silent Spy. Danger on Deception Island, number 7. Oh my goodness, this is my favorite game of all time, and I could literally talk about this game for years. It's just so good. And it has to make the number 7 spot. And I know what you're thinking. You're like, okay, wait a minute. How in the world does Danger on Deception Island top what we just talked about? Like The Silent Spy, Ghost of Thornton Hall. How does that room top that room? And you know what? I think at first, questioning that, yes, I would agree with you, because you look at Ghost of Thornton Hall, you look at Deadly Device, you look at Silent Spy, and you're like, those are much newer games. They have much more exploration in their rooms, much more sequencing and more puzzles and things happening. However, with Danger on Deception Island, it kind of, is unique in its own way, because the room itself is the building itself, if that makes sense. It's like the room that Nancy's staying at is the actual, like, boat. It's the boat. Like, the boat is the room, kind of, and the room is the boat. They kind of go hand in hand. You kind of can't look at just that bedroom area. It's kind of like Deadly Device, where the room is just so interconnected to that lobby area, to the break room area, that you can't not, use that as the same space, because Nancy utilizes not only the bedroom area, she naturally falls right into the room, you know what I mean? So they kind of have to go hand in hand. And with this room, there's no other game like it. There's not another game where the boat, the room, the building is the room, you know what I mean? So it kind of just has to go up a little bit because of its uniqueness in that way, but also because the boat itself is a place where we spend a lot of time, and a lot happens as soon as Nancy goes and unpacks her suitcase. As soon as she does that, it is an immediate, like, she turns around, there's an immediate moment of exploration. She opens the nearest closet by her and discovers this freezer that kind of stinks a little bit, and it's melting, and we don't know what that means yet, but it later becomes a clue to make Katie look guilty for something. We discover that the pipes are all messed up. We discover that the books have been ransacked, right? so much happens the moment that Nancy packs her suitcase up. Like we zip it up, we're done, and we turn around and boom, we are in the space where the culprit has been. And I think that is something special to note about this particular room. Because of those things, I think that's what makes it higher. I think that's what brings up Danger on Deception Island's room that Nancy stays at a little bit higher. It's not just a room. It's a boat. And it's not just a boat. It's a ransacked boat that the culprit was just at. And you know, you kind of get that feeling like, oh my gosh, the culprit was just here. We have to find a clue. And you immediately go into puzzle mode and start looking around. And I also love too that, you know, there are a lot of puzzles that we do here. You know, we have the computer, Nancy's trusty old laptop, you know, where she has the anagram buster, and we look at all these websites and we're discovering clues to do Holtz-Gatto's quiz. The microscope puzzle where we're having to call Casey Porterfield and having to do the what type of wood is this? I mean, there's so much happening on this one space where Nancy is rooming that I think it deserves a little bit more credit than just a sleeping quarter. So Danger on Deception Island, wow, it knocks it out of the park for me. I love that one, and I think it deserves a higher up spot. So Danger on Deception Island, number 7. And coming in at number 6, we have Nancy Drew, The Phantom of Venice. Okay, so The Phantom of Venice, I really enjoy this room. I enjoy the things that happen in this room, which we'll be getting to in a minute. But yeah, The Phantom of Venice. So just starting off, I love that Nancy Drew has a roommate. It's awesome. And I like that we get to kind of explore having a roommate. I don't think we really have gotten to do that at this point in the line of mysteries. Like, I know Nancy Drew stays with JJ Ling, but there's not really, there's a little bit of, you know, some interaction there. But in this setting, like, Nancy is literally rooming with a roommate, and we not only get this cutscene of Elena where she's like screaming in the middle of the night because the Phantom pays them a visit, but we also get to talk with Elena about certain changes that are happening. Like, you know, Nancy asks her, hey, I noticed that you've got, you know, your baggage there, your postcards, and then Elena comments on that. Elena also comments on the outfits that Nancy wears if she changes. So I think that there's a lot more interaction there having a roommate, and I like that. I don't think we've had that, and I enjoy that they did that for this mystery. And I also enjoy that we come face to face with the actual Phantom, and Elena comes out the bathroom screaming, because I think that is a perfect way to really throw us off from who the culprit was. I think that was really flawlessly done. And again, we hadn't had something happen like that in any of the other mysteries. So for me, Phantom of Venice, it does rank up higher because of those mentions, and I enjoy that. And I also really enjoy the aesthetic of the room as well. The red tones that we have are so rich in detail, and I really love that. And I enjoy that they added an area where you can kind of explore, but there's really nothing to that other than you actually kind of get to walk outside this big glass door onto this platform where you can kind of look at the gondola, the water, and just different, you can look, I think, from all 3 points you can peek outside of this space. And other than the one time where the Phantom visits and rips Nancy's locket off, and she walks outside during the night to look at the pathway where the Phantom supposedly ran away, there's really no reason to have that other than for just aesthetic. And I think anytime that there are things added for aesthetic purposes, just to give some more character or more detail, it always makes things so much better. So the overall look, the incorporation of the cutscenes, and also even the puzzles, you know, we find that, again, this is like a command central for Nancy. This is where she talks a lot to Gina about, you know, just things that she's uncovered, things she's discovered. This is where she also brushes up on her Italian before she goes to take down the crime ring. I mean, it's just so good. And I think the incorporation of where Nancy's sleeping in her room, this space, to the mystery is really, really well done. And let us not forget about the tainted sausages. All right, we can't forget about that. That's a detail that forever is imprinted and lives in Phantom of Venice brain section. So yeah, but an awesome room, and I think it definitely deserves the number 6 spot, Phantom of Venice. Speaking of roommates in the Phantom of Venice, we have Warnings at Waverly Academy, number 5. So, Warnings at Waverly Academy takes the 5th spot here. Again, this would be a little bit later after the Phantom of Venice, but this would be another game where we have a roommate, and another instance where the execution of having a roommate is so well done. We go undercover as Becca Sawyer, and we room with Corrine Myers, and Warnings at Waverly Academy really does it right with making a game where the cast is all a bunch of students at this really prestigious school. They do such a good job of interweaving like gossip between all the characters and makes it really believable. And so we come to find out that the roommate that we're rooming with here at Waverly Academy is a character that's not very well liked. And so we get to kind of explore that throughout talking with multiple characters. And the game just instantly begins right, meeting our roommate in this room. And so I think it does really well at incorporating this room as a place where we kind of get to really be a true detective. Like, I love the idea that we get to snoop through Corrine's stuff while she's not there and trick her into, thinking that we're just this student and that we don't know anything and then we're just here. We also get to, and my favorite part of the entire room is that we get to climb out the window in the middle of the night. And so I think that is a special touch that makes Waverly Academy's room, Nancy's room, a bit higher on the list. The idea that we're having to be really quiet and not wake Corrine up and go out the window but not be caught and get any demerits. And then what we stumble upon by getting out and climbing into the tree is amazing. And that's connected into the space that Nancy's staying at. And in addition to all of that, receiving a black cat note from the room, and Corrine's also in the room, is also so well done. It just really throws you off from thinking that it's her. So that there's got to be someone else helping her once you really do think it's her. Or maybe it's not her, maybe it's someone else. It's just so well done. And I think this space where we're at, this room, it bumps it up a little bit higher because of those qualities. So Warnings at Waverly Academy, number 5. Shadow at the Water's Edge, coming in at number 4. So this one's a really exciting one. I really love the space and the room that Nancy takes on at the Ryokan at Shadow at Water's Edge. So this one I think makes it up pretty high because we actually spend a lot of time in Nancy's room in this game, and also just exploring all the other rooms as well. We have a very close interaction with the ghost, I guess I should say, in this game. I remember that scene when I played it for the first time, where there's the shadow outside of Nancy's door, her window space, and her waking up and seeing the shadow. Oh my goodness, that was so scary because we had already encountered some spooky things, and so it really intensified the emotion. And I love that they have that cutscene where Nancy experiences that. But I also love that we actually we grade. We come back and we grade after each day in the room. I think it's a fun little detail that wasn't even really necessary to the story or the game. It's just kind of a nice little side thing that kind of just makes it more believable that this is what Nancy is doing. But it's really, the main reason why I think this particular room goes all the way up here at the number 4 spot is because of the ending. And I love that it's this room and plus all the adjacent rooms that join together. It's that idea of Nancy catching the culprit and seeing the watery footprints and solving the puzzle of the door. All of that kind of connects for me into her own space, her own room, because that's kind of how she discovered all of it, was she discovered that the walls could open up and go into each room. And so I love that that was incorporated into the end. It kind of ties it really nicely together, the room and the ending, the culprit, the end puzzle. So I really appreciated it because of that, and I thought it kind of gave it some extra points there. Needed to kind of go up to the top there. I just enjoyed it. It was so good. And, you know, I love that this cozy area, this cozy space that was supposed to be really comfortable and peaceful became something that was putting me on edge because of all the spooky details that were added. So all in all, I thought it did a really nice job, and I really enjoyed Shout Out Water's Edge Room, and that's why it got the number 4 spot. All right, so next up we have Alibi and Ashes coming in at our number 3 spot. It's third place, Alibi and Ashes. And it kind of just has to be. It has to be, you guys, because we are finally getting to fully explore Nancy Drew's room. And I think that was such a great thing about mystery number 25, because it wasn't just exploring Nancy's hometown and her friends, but also her room. I mean, what an important thing to be able to see and explore. We're finally getting to see that, and it's so good. It's so great. The desk intro, this is my center of operations, my desk. We're finally getting to explore that desk and open up the drawers and explore what Nancy's life is like. And so, it's so great, that attention to detail that we get to see. And also, I have to give credit to this cabinet, this shelf that we finally get to open up and see. All of Nancy's souvenirs that she's taken from her past mysteries are inside of this cabinet and this shelf. And I kind of remember playing this and having just this freak out moment, because I was like, oh my gosh, this is all the souvenirs that have been on the desk for the past few games, but there's an actual shelf that Nancy keeps them in. I was like, that makes so much sense. I love that. I love it. And I also just love that that's where the mystery takes place. Like, that's where it begins, and also that's where it ends. And so I also thought that was a really just nice touch. It opens up with Nancy having that letter, and then, it's not even like it zooms out and she goes to town hall. Like, no, like, you're there in her desk. Like the mystery starts at her desk, and like, that is so great, so awesome. And also too, I love that we're able to switch between characters and then go get, the puzzle pieces that are needed to explore other parts of the town, such as Nancy's fingerprint kit or her lock picking kit. I mean, all of those things together are just so well done, and I love being able to explore Nancy's room. So because of all those attentions to details and incorporations of puzzles and just the Easter eggs that we're able to see inside this one space, getting to explore the room, Nancy's room, I think it just bumps up super high on the list to number 3, Alibi and Ashes. Message in a Haunted Mansion, number 2. Oh my goodness. This game is just so good in its ambience and its decorations and its looks and feel and atmosphere. It's just so good. And I couldn't go without mentioning this room. And it almost makes it to the top. I almost would argue that it's so close to the number 1 spot. I mean, really it is. It's almost a toss-up. But Message in a Haunted Mansion has a fantastic space that Nancy stays in. It is eerie and spooky, and even in its decor, I would say everything's very dark and like oaky red tones, and I love that. And I love that each room has its kind of its own theme, especially because we get to see Abby's room, which is a lot different from ours. But ours feels different. It does feel like there is maybe some kind of hidden antique treasure in there, thus making so much sense the ending, right? I absolutely love that while we explore our room, we're able to find actual details that are needed for puzzles later. So for example, the bedpost at the end of the bed where Nancy's staying at actually opens up and has a key inside of it. And I love that, because we should be able to explore the room Nancy's in, and it feels very antique and needed. It's, it matters more when Nancy's room has more details to expand on than just a room she stays in. It kind of almost connects Nancy to the past a little bit in a way. So she's staying in this room and she finds a clue, she finds a hidden detail, and that connects her to somehow who hid the key there in the first place. Well, someone from the past way long ago, and it just feels so much more mystery like that. That's such a Nancy Drew thing for her to discover, and I love that. And we cannot go without mentioning the fact that Nancy literally discovers the treasure in her room. That is so good. It's so good. I love when we open it up and we find this dazzling, beautiful red jewel with this paper that was written from many, 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 many years ago, and Nancy's holding it and reading it. It's such a Nancy Drew thing, and I think that is what just skyrockets Message in a Haunted Mansion above other games, is because the incorporation of detail and connection to the storyline inside Nancy's room is phenomenal. It surpasses what other rooms have done, which is where, either it was a mystery that didn't show a room, or maybe it was a mystery that had a room, but it really just didn't have a whole lot to it. And then, or there were rooms and they just didn't have quite the character like this one. I mean, this one just has so much love to it, and I love it, and I think it deserves the second spot. All right, sleuths, well, that wraps up the top 10 Nancy Drew rooms. I hope you enjoyed this video, and wait a minute, we gotta talk about the number 1 spot. You think I almost forgot about the number 1 spot? No, we have to talk about it. But first, I do want to maybe go ahead and dive into some of these other spaces and Nancy Drew mysteries where there isn't a room, or maybe there is a room and it just doesn't have as much character, and kind of talk about that before we get to our number 1 spot. So let's dive into that conversation. So probably the most obvious mystery that I can think of where we don't get to see Nancy Drew's space, there's actually 2. The first one is the final scene. So it's very obvious that Nancy solves this case within 3 days. So we actually do end each night with Nancy returning the next day, and there maybe being something that has changed, such as the funeral wreath or the press pass was found, but we never actually get to explore Nancy's space. We assume that maybe Nancy is staying at a hotel, and I think that's probably the most probable. That she's probably staying at some hotel, and she comes to the hotel each night just super wired and anxious because she has a time frame. She has to solve this super fast to save her friend. And I'm not really mad at this game for not featuring a space where Nancy has to explore or go to a hotel. I don't think it was necessarily needed. But, for this ranking, it is a game that doesn't have a room. So there is nothing that we can actually explore or see. I think the game does well without a space or a room. It's not really needed. I think it's great that the mystery is solved in the theater itself, and there are still enough spaces and passageways and hidden things to explore within the theater that doesn't make it feel so claustrophobic and just like it's one location. So I do give props to Final Scene. They were able to pull that off. The second mystery, though, that comes to mind is actually Secret of Shadow Ranch. And this one I'm a little disappointed in because I think I would have absolutely loved and preferred to have had a bedroom where Nancy kind of utilizes. I think it would have been like a cherry on top of everything else that was so well done in this game. Not maybe that it's necessarily needed, I guess, but it could have been used in a way where maybe we could have found some pertinent clues to, I don't know, for example, let's say something that maybe the culprit had left behind that insinuated that the strange things that were happening were much more person done, less than a phantom horse did it. I think we could have found something like a scratched piece of paper or a receipt or something in a room, in like a trash bin, or maybe even found a book that had like something tucked away inside of it. I think any of that would have been really like a nice touch within a bedroom that Nancy is staying. And plus it would have been nice because the mystery does have a day and night sequence to have an actual space where Nancy can go and end the day. I think that would have been nice as well. And I would have appreciated that if it had that. Other mysteries where maybe there's a general idea of the space we're staying in, but we still don't physically get to see the space. I think another 2 that really come to mind are Stay Tuned for Danger and Ghost Dogs of Moon Lake, you know, we get a very good idea of what the ambience and the environment is like, you know, with Maddie Jensen's apartment in New York. I mean, we really get to explore a pretty good deal of her apartment. The front entrance area where the phone is at, and then down the hallway into the more living area, the living space where her office is set up and the fireplace is at. And then, of course, there's that day and night sequence where we can switch between the staircase between day and night. And it's the same type of deal with Ghost Dogs of Moon Lake. We can switch between day and night using the staircase, and we get a really good feel of what the cabin is like. It's really run down. It's not really all finished and put together yet. We get to see the living area, the kitchen area, but we don't get to see a room. And I just really wish that we could, because it almost feels like a very complete thing to me. Like, for example, I'm okay with not seeing kitchens in the Nancy Drew universe. You know, that's always been a running spoof that we never get to see the kitchens, such as in Curse of Blackmore Manor or Secret of the Old Clock. That's totally fine for me. But a bedroom, like a room where Nancy is staying at, is so iconic to her character, because I love seeing her suitcase opened with all of her, you know, mom jeans, her horse t-shirt, and whatever like souvenirs she's bringing from the past mystery. It's just kind of an iconic moment for, you know, me playing the games, and I wish we would have seen that in other mysteries. And I think it would have even made some of these mysteries stronger to have an actual space and room that Nancy utilizes, almost kind of like a command center, to actually see the upstairs part of the cabin of Ghost Dogs of Moon Lake, I think would have been amazing. I mean, imagine, I don't know, this is just coming to mind, but imagine being able to go to the upstairs bedroom in the cabin, and you can, there's like maybe like a cutscene where Nancy can look out the window from the second part of the story and she can see the dogs running around. I mean, ooh, that sounds amazing, right? I would have loved that. I would have loved to have been able to just kind of see, like, maybe there's like this old trunk that's upstairs in the upper bedroom of the cabin. I mean, just things I think to really complete the space would have been really nice. And then another space or area that I thought of was actually Haunting of Castle Malloy. I guess the idea here is that we do solve the case within less than a day. I guess in one night we're solving this case. I wish that maybe, you know, there was something more solidified that this is where Nancy is staying. I actually, to be honest with you, don't really know where she's supposed to stay in that game. I don't know if it's like she's supposed to take caught up in the nursery. I think maybe that's what it is that she's supposed to do. Either way, I think adding rooms to Nancy Drew mystery games always seems to really do something special for it. You know, if you look at this list and you look at the top 10 games that made it, most of the games that have physical rooms to explore are actually some of our most top-rated Nancy Drew games. So that I think that actually says something, you know, when there is a space that Nancy can explore that's her own personal room, and it's connected to either the culprit or the story or the mystery, or she finds puzzles and clues within that space and within that room. I think the mystery actually is stronger and is more solidified and does better. And I'm looking at this list and I'm thinking of these games. I'm like, yeah, you know, these are some of our best Nancy Drew games. It makes sense that the incorporation of the room to the story to the culprit to all of those things really makes the game that much better. Another game that I think of that probably, you know, would make this list, it just didn't make the top 10, so it would probably be 11, 12, and 13, would actually be Secret of the Scarlet Hand, Haunted Carousel, and Treasure in the Royal Tower. All three of those games have very generic hotel rooms, and I'm okay with that. It's just that the other spaces in this top 10 list fascinated me more. I think of things like the Haunted Carousel. I think that probably would have been my number 11 spot, and probably could have competed for the number 10 spot, because I do love the incorporation of having to do the puzzle of the menu, where we do have to find the silver spoon, right? Or the iron that's in the hotel. I love that that's also incorporated into the puzzle as well. So I think that definitely has some merit. Treasure in the Royal Tower, there's really not much to that room. We do get knocked out and do wake up in that room. There is the menu for that room. But yeah, no, most of the time, the rooms that have more to them, I feel like the game somehow it just always does better. So, all right, you know what? We've broke down a lot of information about these rooms, but it's time to get to the number one spot. So, number one, here we go. The Curse of Blackmore Manor. Yes, this game makes it up to the number one spot. And I feel like this doesn't even need explanation, but the room in this game is so phenomenal. There are so many puzzles hidden in this one space. I think it has probably the most puzzles out of all the rooms, right? Is Curse of Blackmore Manor. And Curse of Blackmore Manor is special. And I think out of all 33 games, it definitely is in my most high appreciation for the aesthetic and the design. Every single space in Curse of Blackmore Manor is so intricately designed and so well done. It's fantastic. So Nancy's room in particular has always been a space that was one of my favorite rooms. I love the blue walls. I love the murals. I love the random trinkets in the room. But I think what makes this room so special and at the number one spot is the number of eerie things that happened to Nancy while she's in the room. We get not only the eerie nightmare, but we also get woken up by noises. We can also get the Easter egg by falling asleep, and we have this really strange dream about frogs. I mean, there are a lot of dreams and nightmares within this room, and that amps up the scary factor, the eerie factor. It really makes the game's atmosphere better. And I love too ordering the food. That is an amazing puzzle. That alone is probably in the top 10 most known things in the Nancy Drew universe world, is the butter and the turkey and the pinky and perky and the dog's eye, right? Like old Johnny Rudder butter. We all know it, right? We all know about this joke about this food. And so it just has become kind of an iconic room, an iconic space that Nancy has visited, and we get a lot of content and jokes out of it. So I think that's why Nancy Drew Curse of Blackmore Manor, its room is the best. It is the best room that Nancy has ever stayed in. It's just really well done. And so I also enjoy the changes that come about with this room. So I don't know if you remember in the game, and it sometimes can be triggered and sometimes not, but sometimes you go to your room and you'll see claw marks on the doorpost, or you'll get this strange note underneath the door that has a fang attached to it with some red wax. I mean, so much is incorporated into this room to not only amplify the scary factor and to amplify the overall atmosphere, but to really sell the idea of this mystery to the player. And so I love this room. I love what it does. I think it totally deserves the number one spot. And it is, in my opinion, the best Nancy Drew room. Well, sleuths, now that officially wraps up our ranking of top 10 favorite Nancy Drew rooms. I'm so excited I was able to sit down and talk about this. I didn't know that I had 45 minutes worth of talk of Nancy Drew rooms in me, but thanks so much for joining, and thanks so much for watching and participating in all my videos on Carter Plays channel. I'm so excited to continue to make content here and there when I can. And it's always so fun talking with you guys and meeting you all. So yeah, hey, make sure to please like this video and give me a comment below about what your favorite Nancy Drew room is, or if you have anything you'd like to add to this list. I always love reading and love to know. So thank you so much, and be sure to check out my community tab where I will be posting all current stream schedules and what's happening on the channel. So thank you guys so much, and you have a great rest of your day.